Hello everyone, I have recorded this webinar for those who could not attend the training session. I will cover basics of infection prevention and control measures and basic management of COVID 19 in this session. Infection prevention and control is a scientific approach to prevent harm caused by infection to patient and healthcare workers. In December 2019, there was a cluster of atypical pneumonia in Wuhan city of China. On 7th Jan 2020, a novel coronavirus was identified from these patients. On 30th Jan 2020, India confirmed its first case and virus was renamed as SARS-CoV-2 and disease as COVID-19 on 11th Feb. COVID-19 declared as pandemic on 11th March by WHO and till date almost all countries are affected worldwide. COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, which is an enveloped RNA virus, and dissolving of this lipid membrane is the key behind disinfection by soaps or alcohol based hand rub. Now, how does this virus spread? There are mainly three methods of transmission. First is through infected droplets, which can settle down on ground. Second is through infected aerosols, which are droplets of size less than 5 micron, and according to some literature, size is less than 10 micron. But irrespective of these, you should remember that aerosol are those which can remain suspended in the air, and droplets are those which settle down on surfaces due to gravity. Third mode of transmission is by contact. It may be direct contact when droplets directly land on hands or indirect when someone touches the contaminated surfaces. Virus infects when it is inoculated into eyes, nose, or mouth cavity through droplet, aerosol, or contact. If you touch your eyes, nose, and mouth with contaminated hand, virus will get inoculated. So make a habit to not to touch face without hand washing. And it seems very easy, but practically it is most difficult task to follow. Now we can minimize the transmission by practicing some preventive and control measures. First is standard precautions, which include hand hygiene, personal protective equipments as per risk involved, respiratory or cough hygiene or etiquettes, appropriate patient placement, waste disposal, cleaning and disinfection of devices and environment, safe handling and cleaning of soiled linen, safe injection practice. Others include airborne precautions for aerosols, droplet precautions for droplet exposure, and contact precaution for direct contact and indirect contact, and source control measures to reduce the spread from the patient. Then droplets having size more than 5 to 10 micron can travel up to 1 to 2 meters. We can prevent droplet exposure by practicing social distancing, wearing triple layer face mask, goggles, and face shield which can cover eye, nose, and mouth. All these are part of droplet precautions. Now, source control measure for droplet infection are to provide medical mask to the patient, explain about respiratory or cough etiquettes, and social distancing to the patient. As shown in this picture, by practicing both preventive and source control measure, we can minimize the probability of infection. Triple layer mask is used in droplet precautions. Its basic usage in surgical procedures to prevent virus secretion from falling into the surgical area and to protect wearer from direct body fluid exposure. This mask is as effective as N95 for droplet exposure. It is made up of three layers. The outer layer is fluid resistant. Middle layer is filter membrane made up of melt blown non-woven fabric, and inner layer to absorb moisture. For wearing the mask, perform hand hygiene first. Keep blue surface outside and white surface inside with metal strip on the upper side. And after wearing the mask, mold the metal strip over nasal bridge for tight fitting. The main drawback of triple layer mask is that it is not airtight and air leakage is always there. These are some do's and don'ts for triple layer mask. Set your specs over mask. Then during removal, touch ear loop or strip only from behind. Never touch front of the mask. If you have touched front of mask inadvertently, then wash your hand immediately. Open lower strip first to prevent filing of mask over clothes. Then dispose properly and do hand washing. Change your mask when it gets wet or used for more than 6 to 8 hours. Don't leave the mask hanging around the neck. Next mode of transmission is aerosol, which are droplets of size less than 5 to 10 micron and can remain suspended in the air. They are generated during cardiopulmonary resuscitation, intubation, tracheostomy, open suctioning, nebulization, and high flow nasal cannula therapy. All these procedures are usually performed in ICUs. Aerosol exposure can be prevented by airborne precautions, which include N95 mask and airtight goggles. Other control measures include creative negative pressure area where aerosol generating procedure are done, avoiding nebulization, and open suctioning by using alternate option like metered dose inhaler with spacer instead of nebulization, and maintaining good inline suction instead of open suctioning in ventilated patient, then maintaining good ventilation in isolation ward and use of HEPA filters in ICUs and AC plants. Avoid unnecessary movements of patient and staff in patient care area, and maintain humidity of patient care area between 40 to 70%, which prevents rapid conversion of small droplets into aerosols. Respirator are used as airborne precautions. These masks are tight fitting masks and have safety rating. Unlike triple layer surgical mask, most commonly used respirator is N95 mask, which is American standard managed by NIOS as a part of CDC. And 95 means it removes 95% of particles larger than zero point 0.3 micron size. Similarly, N95 remove 95% of particles more than zero point 0.3 micron size, and N100 remove 99.97% of particles. And filtering phase piece or FFP standard is used in Europe, and FFP2 can remove 94% of the particle more than zero point 0.3 micron size, and it is similar to N95 mask. After wearing respirator, do fit test in which respirator should move in and out with inhalation and exhalation. During doffing, respirator should be removed at last and don't touch front of mask. And if touched inadvertently, do hand washing as told earlier. Maximum use of 8 hours is recommended. Don't leave the respirator hanging around the neck during use. Now the question arises whether the respirator can be reused or not. In specific condition, reuse or extended use of respirator can be done as per CDC and AIMS guideline. If you are using respirator for short time, put it into a paper bag and let it dry for 72 hours. After that, it can be reused on day 4. And cumulative period of use should not exceed more than 8 hours. But make sure to discard the respirator following single use if it is used in aerosol generating procedure, contaminated with blood or secretion, or you have examined the patient closely. And it is preferable to wear face shield over respirator. Last mode of transmission is direct and indirect contact through the most frequently touched surfaces, which include doorknobs, railing, telephone, etc. This can be prevented by frequent hand washing, which is the best preventive measure for all types of infection. Other preventive measures are use of personal protective equipments and using dedicated and disposable equipments for the patient. All these are contact precaution. Similarly, disinfection of contaminated surfaces and quarantine of suspected and stable confirmed cases are good control measures. You can disinfect your mobile with alcohol swab or 1% sodium hypochlorite swab. For easy disinfection, you can put your phone into Ziploc polythene before entry into the hospital. For disinfection of footwear, use washable shoes and disinfect it with 1% sodium hypochlorite swab or alcohol swab. Disinfect the sole of shoes on doormat soaked in sodium hypochlorite solution. These are 5 hand hygiene moments by WHO. Wash your hand before touching a patient, before cleaning or clean or aseptic procedure, after body fluid exposure, and after touching a patient or after touching patient's surroundings. Washing hands with hand rub for 20 to 30 seconds or washing hands with soap and water for 40 to 60 seconds, both are equally effective. But if hands are visibly soiled, soap and water should be used. Hand washing includes 6 steps which are similar for both methods. You can easily remember this step with the mnemonic Suman K or Suman Kumari. S for Samne or rubbing palm to palm. Then U for Ulta or rubbing palm to back. Then third is M for Muthi or interlocking finger. Then A for Angutha or thumb. Then N for cleaning of nail or nakhun. And K for clay or wrist. This video will show us the importance of all, all the 6 steps of hand washing for proper hand hygiene. Take adequate amount of liquid soap or hand rub in cupped hand, then spread it over both hands. First step is rubbing palm to palm with interlacing finger. Second step is rubbing back to palm with interlacing fingers on both sides. It will take 5 seconds in hand rub and 10 seconds in soap and water for each step. Third step is cleaning with interlocking fingers. Fourth step is cleaning of thumb with rotatory movement of opposite hand. Fifth step is cleaning of nails. And sixth step is cleaning of wrist. So it is clearly understood from this video that if we follow all these steps properly, no area of the hand is left uncleaned. These are personal protective equipments for contact precautions for healthcare workers. Donning and doffing of PPE. Putting on PPE is called donning and removal of PPE is called doffing. Donning should be done in designated donning area at entry site. Before donning, ensure proper hydration, meal and use washroom. as you may not be able to do in the next 6 to 8 hours of duty. So, in donning, do hand hygiene first, then wear the gown and shoe cover, followed by inner gloves, respirator, goggles, face shield, and outer gloves at the last. Doffing is done in doffing area, which should be separated from donning area, and at exit point. Key points in doffing are remove most exposed PPE or most contaminated PPE first, like apron, shoe cover, face shield, and outer gloves. Do hand hygiene after each step and remove N95 mask at the last. I recommend all of you to go through donning and doffing videos available on AMS YouTube channel Telemedicine. Many webinar on IPC measures management and mechanical ventilation for doctors and nurses are also available here. When you return home from the hospital or outdoor, remove your shoes outside. Try not to touch anything and leave your mobile, glass, wallet, and keys into a box at entrance. Go straight to the bathroom. Put your clothes in a tub filled with detergent, water. Have a shower and then clean your phone and glasses with alcohol swab. When you go out from the home, wear long sleeved shirt, put your hair up, don't wear earrings, bracelet, and shave your beard, which can be a breach in your safety. Put mask, do frequent hand washing, and maintain social distancing. Now, coming to clinical features of COVID 19, patient can present with fever, dry cough, fast breathing or shortness of breath, myalgia, body ache, sore throat, diarrhea, anosmia. And immunocompromised person can present with atypical symptoms with incubation period of 2 to 14 days. So fever and dry cough are most consistent features with severe as well as non-severe cases, while dyspnea or shortness of breath is more common in severe cases. We can differentiate common cold and allergies from flu and COVID 19 on the basis of clinical feature, but it is impossible to differentiate flu and COVID 19 without confirmatory test. Term SARI is used for surveillance purpose in COVID-19 screening, which stand for severe acute respiratory illness. Anyone having cough and fever more than 38 degrees centigrade with onset within last 10 days and requiring hospitalization is SARI. So, surveillance definition of suspected case includes any symptomatic individual who have undertaken international or local travel in hotspot area in last 14 days, or any symptomatic contacts of laboratory confirmed cases, or symptomatic healthcare personnel, all hospitalized patient of SARI, and symptomatic individual means anyone having cough, fever, and shortness of breath. Last category is asymptomatic direct and high risk contacts of confirmed case. Direct and high risk contacts include household contact and any healthcare worker who has examined a confirmed case without any PPE. Now, what is probable case? A suspect case for home testing for COVID 19 is inconclusive, or RT-PCR report is inconclusive, or for whom IgM antibody test is positive. In confirmed case, RT-PCR is positive. Then current testing strategy covers all categories of suspected cases. So we have to send samples of all symptomatic suspected cases. and asymptomatic direct and high risk contacts of a confirmed case should be tested once between day 5 and day 14 of coming in contact. Government of India has also introduced rapid antibody based blood test which tests for IgM and IgG antibody. As this picture is self explanatory, viremia starts from day 1 of infection and usually lasts for 4 weeks. So RT-PCR will be positive in this period. IgM appears in blood after day 7 of infection and lasts up to day 11. So first 7 days are window period and only RT-PCR will be positive in this period. IgG production start after 2 weeks of infection and lasts for lifelong. So if only RT-PCR is positive with negative IgM and IgG, it means patient is in window period. If RT-PCR and IgM are positive with negative IgG, it denotes early stage of infection. If RT-PCR and IgM are positive with negative IgG, it denotes early stage of infection. Then if all three are positive, it means patient is in active phase of infection. And if only IgG is positive, it means patient has recovered from the disease. Antibody test is useful in hotspot area or large migration gathering. Anyone with symptom of influenza like illness do rapid antibody test, and if it is positive, treat as probable case which can be confirmed with RT-PCR. And if rapid antibody test is negative and there is clinically suspected, then go for RT-PCR. And if patient is stable and in home quarantine, we can repeat antibody test after 10 days to overcome the window period. Then this visual triage scoring chart used for screening of suspected patients in flu clinics and emergency adopted by our institute. COVID-19 can present as uncomplicated URTI, mild pneumonia, or severe pneumonia with or without complication. Mild pneumonia is defined as pneumonia with respiratory rate less than 30 in adults, and in children, pneumonia with tachypnea, which is defined as more than 60 breath per minute in less than 2 months, more than 50 breath per minute in age groups 2 to 11 month, and more than 40 breath per minute in 1 to 5 years of age group. Then severe pneumonia in adult, pneumonia with respirate more than 30 or with severe respiratory distress or SpO2 less than 90% on room air. And central cyanosis in children, central cyanosis or SpO2 less than 90% or severe respiratory distress with grunting and chest indrawing, inability to breastfeed or drink, lethargy, unconsciousness or convulsion are sign of severe pneumonia in children, along with tachypnea and radiological sign of pneumonia. Main complications of severe COVID-19 are ARDS, sepsis, and septic shock. High risk factors for severe disease are age more than 60 years, cardiovascular disease including hypertension, diabetes, and other immunocompromised states like nephrotic syndrome, chronic lung, kidney, liver disease, and cerebrovascular disease. ARDS is acute respiratory distress syndrome, which can be classified into mild, moderate, and severe ARDS on the basis of PaO2 and FiO2 ratio. In mild ARDS, ratio is between 2 to 300 on PEEP of 5 centimeter of water in ventilated patient, non-ventilated patient, and ratio between 100 to 200 is suggestive of moderate RDS, and ratio less than 100 is suggestive of severe RDS. If ABG and PaO2 not available, SpO2 or FiO2 ratio is used, and value less than 315 is suggestive of RDS in adult, and value less than 264 suggestive of ARDS in children. After admission, send nasopharyngeal and oropharyngeal swab for RT-PCR for COVID-19 and influenza with blood culture, CBC, LFT, KFT, ABG, and chest X-ray. Send CPK, LDH, and D dimer on discretion of physician. In early sportive treatment, start oxygen with mask at 5 liter per minute. If patient is not maintaining saturation at room air, flow can be titrated from 5 to 15 liter per minute with non-rebreathing oxygen mask to achieve target SpO2 of more than 90%. In children with severe pneumonia, target saturation should be more than 90%, 94%, and in pregnant women, it should be between 92 to 95%. IV fluid, if required in a patient with normal BP without any sign of shock, restricted fluid should be given because aggressive fluid resuscitation may worsen oxygenation. Start broad spectrum antibiotics to treat all likely pathogens causing community acquired pneumonia, hospital acquired pneumonia, or sepsis. And antibiotics should be started within 1 hour of identification of sepsis. Start oseltamivir for influenza cover, and this antimicrobial therapy can be modified later on the basis of blood culture and flu report. If if patient is not maintaining saturation with oxygen therapy, then NIV can be used in form of BiPAP or high flow nasal cannula therapy. Steroids should be avoided because a larger dose of steroid will delay the removal of virus due to immunosuppressive effect, and if required use for a short period of time of 3 to 5 days, dose should not exceed the equivalent of methylprednisolone 1 to 2 mg per kg per day. Antiviral drugs, ritonavir and lopinavir combination, which is used in post-exposure prophylaxis for HIV, can be used in COVID-19 patients with severe pneumonia or in high-risk group after proper consent. Chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, both drugs have in vitro activity against SARS-CoV-2 virus, and both should be taken post-meal to avoid hypoglycemia. According to a French study, it can reduce viral carriage on day 6 of treatment, and addition of azithromycin further increases efficacy of virus elimination. QT interval prolongation is a significant side effect associated with both the drugs, so ECG monitoring is required. For treatment, tablet SCQ 400 mg BD on day 1 followed by 400 mg OD for 5 days is given. For healthcare worker prophylaxis, 400 mg twice a day on day 1 followed by 400 mg once weekly for next 7 week is advised. And for household contact prophylaxis, 400 mg twice a day on day 1 followed by 400 mg once weekly for next 3 weeks is advised. Other supportive treatment include paracetamol and symptomatic management with vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B1, and zinc. Some are under trial. Then, for complication, ARDS should be managed with non-invasive ventilation and mechanical ventilation as per ARDS net protocol. And sepsis should be managed with appropriate antibiotics timely. And we can manage soak with the fluid resuscitation and inotropes, reduce the incidence of ventilator associated pneumonia by maintaining asepsis and closed circuit suction, inline suction, and incidence of venous thromboembolism can be reduced with low molecular weight heparin. Incidence of catheter related infection can be reduced with asepsis, and frequent change of position will decrease the incidence of pressure ulcers. Patient can be discharged after clinical and radiological improvement, and two sample become negative in at least 24 hours of gap. This algorithm of management from AMS protocol is adopted by our institute. So manage the mild case with the paracetamol, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, and good hydration with strict monitoring of vitals. In severe pneumonia, manage the case with oxygen therapy, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, IV fluid, and shift the patient if any complication like ARDS, sepsis, shock, or altered sensorium develops. Use lopinavir, ritonavir combination in severe cases and in high risk group, and discharge the patient after improvement as explained earlier. Just scan this QR code with the help of any app like Paytm, PhonePe, or Google Scanner. It will redirect you to Google Form quiz. Submit your responses. It will take hardly 10 minutes. After passing this quiz, you will get a certificate of participation. And thanks. Use personal protective equipments appropriately and stay safe. Thank you.